Order. We will be starting momentarily with our invocation from Pastor Kevin Smith from Northland Cathedral. But before we proceed with that, I would request that everybody would stand and observe a moment of silence for former presiding commissioner Peggy Shull. She passed away this past week. And so if we could rise and observe a moment of silence, we will then go to Pastor Smith. Pastor?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today and we want to thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. We praise you and we give you all the honor. Lord, we take this moment to remember Peggy Shaw and her family. We pray, Lord, that you would comfort them, give them your strength and peace even today. Lord, we lift up the families and individuals here in our community that may be hurting and need to know more of your love. We pray, Lord, for this business session today. We give you and commit all the decisions that will be made, Lord, that you would lead and guide. We pray for the leadership of this Clay County. We ask you, Lord, that you would also give them the wisdom and direction that they need each and every day as they focus on the needs in our community. Lord, we ask you that you would provide. You would provide in more than ways we could ever even imagine, that we might experience the blessings, we might experience your strength in our lives, and this very week that we might remember and focus our attention on you. We pray all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As we prepare to go to roll call, I would just, for the information of those present, we are on the first phase of putting together a new system here as far as our interaction electronically. So there may well be the need to exercise some patience, especially with myself, as we go forward. That being said, please call the roll.
Commissioner
Here.
Commissioner
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here. Didn't quite come through. I think we can continue on without too many. I just activated them for you. All right, thank you. Motion has been made for the approval of today's agenda. Any discussion? Are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lawson. Aye. Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes. That brings us to public comments. Are there any members of the public who would care to comment at this moment? Anyone wishing to comment? Seeing none. That brings us to our consent agenda. Administrator?
The consent agenda allows the Commission to act upon items considered to be routine and approved in one motion. These may include items that have been reviewed by the Commission in a prior session. There will be no separate discussion unless the Commissioner requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The consent agenda for today, April 5th, includes 6 items: the Commission meeting minutes from February 15th, Resolution 2023-120 is approving the 2023-2024 grant application with the Missouri Department of Transportation for the Youth Alcohol Enforcement Grant. Resolution 2023-121, approving the 2023-2024 grant application with Missouri Department of Transportation Occupant Protection Grant. Resolution 2023-122, approving the 2023-2024 grant application with Missouri Department of Transportation for the DWI Saturation Patrol Grant. Resolution 2023-123, approving the 2023-2024 grant application with Missouri Department of Transportation for the Hazardous Moving Enforcement Saturation Grant. And Resolution 2023-124, approving the 2023-2024 grant application with Missouri Department of Transportation for the Dedicated Impaired Driving Enforcement Unit Grant.
Very good. Are there any commissioners who would like to remove any items from the consent agenda before we go for a motion for a vote? Very well. Seeing none, is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as provided.
Motion has been made for the approval of this afternoon's consent agenda. Discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner. Aye. Commissioner Lawson.
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes.
That brings us to this afternoon's regular agenda. First on that agenda is 2023 Ordinance 7. Administrator?
With the Commission's indulgence, I'd like to take the next two items together, please. 2023 Ordinance 07 is amending and reappropriating and amending the 2023 budget in anticipation of receiving the grant awarded for domestic mediation services. And then also the next item, 2023 Ordinance 08, is also amending the budget in anticipation of the grant being received in the amount of $12,000 for the Parenting Court Support Services. And these are through our court system, and Terry Hargrave is here to provide information to the Commission.
Please proceed.
Thank you. We're so high tech now. Good morning, afternoon. My name is Dr. Terry Hargrave. I am the Director of the Office of Dispute Resolution. These grants have already been awarded. I just requested additional funds in the amount of $9,000 for the Parenting Court Resources and in the amount of $1,800 for the domestic mediation. They have graciously said yes, they would provide us with that additional funding. So I'm just here to talk to you guys about that.
Are there any questions on this issue? Commissioner Wagner?
I move to approve 2023 Ordinance 07 and 2023 Ordinance 08.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2023 Ordinance 7 and 2023 Ordinance number 8. Further discussion? Go ahead and, all right, let me see if I can pull this up. Commissioner Carpenter, you are recognized to speak.
I just want to briefly say thanks to Terry for staying on top of these grant applications, which I know you've been doing for years, and have my gratitude, and I assume of the Commission. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Very well, Commissioner Wagner, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Lawson.
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Withington.
Yes.
That brings us to the last item on this afternoon's regular agenda, 2023-125. Administrator?
Resolution 2023-125 is consideration of a 3-year agreement for county data backups and disaster recovery solutions with Choice Solutions. This comes from our IT department, and Zach Gibb, with our IT manager, is here to provide information to the Commission.
Good afternoon, Zachary Gibb, Network Security Manager for Clay County. Basically, we're looking for approval of our RCA here. would be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioner Wagner.
Move to approve 2023-125.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2023-125. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Lawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Whittington.
Yes. Very well. That brings us to our discussion items. First on the agenda is airport updates from the airport. Please proceed. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're actually starting to begin a new process in the commission meeting. Once a month, we're asking departments to come forward and provide an update to the commission on the activities that have been occurring, and, you know, some of the accomplishments that have happened, and some of the challenges being faced. And so, number one, we're going in alphabetical order, so the airport gets to come first, but it's also very timely, as you know, that we have had some challenges with finding our airport manager at the airport, and we certainly appreciate Parks Assistant Director John Davis for stepping up and being out at the airport and managing it for us and doing an excellent job. And so Deputy County Administrator Kuntz is here to provide information about the airport and also provide some options for the commission to consider.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So I'm the first one that gets to play with this new system over here, so let's hope it goes a little bit smoother. So as our county administrator has just mentioned, I am here to give you, first of all, a quick overview of the airport, and then to discuss kind of where we're at and where we might be able to go. And again, I do want to point out again that we do have our interim airport manager, John Davis, here to be available for us.
Put it in presentation mode, they can see it a little better.
Thank you. The airport was originally opened in 1996 with the runway being the length of 4,000 feet by 75 feet. In 2003, that was lengthened and expanded to 5,504 feet by 100 feet. And then most recently, in 2022, we just went through a major rehabilitation program to the runway surfaces and an upgrade to our lights. That is not 100% complete yet because that started late in the fall. Then we ran into weather. The runway project is done, but some of our lighting upgrade and seating along the runway is still not completed yet. One of the most frequently asked questions we get is, how big of a plane can land at our airport? So there are two types. We have a single wheel plane, and the max for that is 30,000 pounds that are the depth of our runway surface can accommodate. The second type is a two-wheel plane, and 60,000 gross weight pounds is the max that we can accommodate for a plane that size. Some of the, our next slide has some just basic information about what we have, the number of hangars, the types of hangars that we have. We have tie downs, which are basically used for people just kind of in transit. Maybe they're just going out for the afternoon, they've landed, they have a business meeting, they just want to tie down, they don't want to actually use a hangar. So we have that ability to tie them down. We do have 62 T hangars. We have 3 large heated maintenance hangars. At the present time, and thanks to John Davis for just completing this inventory, which was something we also needed to do for our assessors department, we currently have 90 aircraft based at our airport. And we are all of our hangars are fully occupied with the exception of one of our large heated maintenance hangars. We gave you some fuel numbers here just to kind of show what we do and what we spent. So in 2022, we had fuel sales of 186,349 gallons. I also wanted to give you our 2021 number, which was 191,638 gallons. We are slightly down for 2022, but we also experienced a 2-month closure in doing our runway project. So even with being down for 2 months, we were still pretty consistent in our fuel sales. So our 2022 numbers, we showed we had 2,089 flights that took off, and that our courtesy car was utilized 43 times in 2022. So one of the questions is, who uses our airport? So typically, law enforcement, other government agencies. We have like medical transports, things like organs, Life Flight Land. We have a lot of our tenants who have private hangars that utilize our airport. We have flight training schools. They do touch and goes, or they may actually take off and land from our field rather than just touch and goes. We have private aircrafts. I pulled some statistics from a survey that Burns & McDonnell did in 2018 surveying our tenants. 55% of our airport was used for recreational purposes. 25% was used for personal business. 10% was flight training. 5% was corporate use, and another 5% for an other category for some other purpose of like flying in for a specific doctor's appointment and back out. So what do we kind of do out there currently? Our staff are available to help fuel your plane, tie down your plane, tug it into your hangar. We offer services for pilots. We have a pilot's rest area lounge. So if you fly in someone and they're going to be at meetings 8 or 9 hours and you need to get your rest before you have to fly that individual back out, there is a lounge and a place to rest, take a nap. We offer complimentary coffee and water while you're there. We also do have the courtesy cars, and those are heavily used a lot of times by the pilots that are waiting for a business person to return after whatever their business function was for the day. At the present moment, as we've already stated, we have an interim airport manager. We have an administrative assistant, 3 full-time attendants, and then we have 2 part-time staff members. We were just recently, because unfortunately we have fought staffing issues, able to get these numbers back up within really only like the last 60 days have we been able to get our numbers back up to this point. So we are finally back up to operating 7 days a week, currently 8 to 4. And I did have somebody else when we were preparing this, like, why 8 to 4? Why not 8 to 5? Well, because of staffing and people's various hours to cover the 7 days a week, no one really gets a lunch hour. Everyone has to do a working lunch hour because planes come and go whenever it's convenient for the planes to land. So there's always a rolling lunch hour for staff. So that's kind of a quick overview of where we're at. And I want to make sure I pause for any questions before I kind of go to some options that we feel we might be able to do to enhance our service and do better.
I just want to say that we appreciate the hard work out there, and there have been a lot of challenges, not only with COVID, but there have also been challenges with just being able to get the number of employees that we require to be able to service that. I also want to make a couple of other points. One is that the airport is not just for recreation, although it's obviously used for that, but it is an economic development tool that I think we need to make sure that we enhance, so it has a double usage, and those usages overlap, quite honestly. We've also been hearing from the Aviation Advisory Board. We certainly appreciate hearing of their input. That is the point of them. That is the point of them being formed. But I think it's good for us to keep in mind as a commission that they are an advisory board, that policy decisions are made here. So this is what we are looking to do. And of course, operational decisions are made by the staff that we have put in place. So want to make sure that we kind of get an idea of where the boundaries are and what the responsibilities of the 3 separate entities we're talking about. That is to say, the commission, our staff, and then our advisory board, all of whom are valuable partners, but we all have separate roles to play in this. With that, Commissioner Wagner, I believe you would like to have something to say?
Yeah, thank you. Just a question, Don, and I appreciated the numbers that you put up earlier. I was struggling a little bit because I didn't know what to compare that to, or perhaps whom to compare that to. I mean, we're not KCI, we're not the downtown airport, but you know, when you look at Lee Summit or New Century out in Johnson County, Kansas, how does that stack up? Are we busy comparable to airports of our size? Are we less so? Or how would you even compare us, if you even would?
Well, I'm turning to look at John to make sure he doesn't have any input put on this, because he's out there on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And honestly, we have not fully and pulled numbers for the other airports to do a full benchmark.
Yeah.
So I really want to kind of
And that's fine.
caveat this answer
Yeah.
that from visitors and other people that we have talked to and other airport managers, we are not heavy on the industrial section of it, but we are still an active airport. I mean, 55% even for the recreational side. It is a busy airport, and anytime you're out there, there's always somebody coming and going. And then we have a tenant that is based out of our airport that does plane mechanics and overhauls, and so their flights are coming and going all the time. More heavily in the evening than during the day, but that's just the nature of their business, is when they usually fly out.
Gotcha.
But anything to add?
That's fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I had one additional question, and that was, and you may not have these particular numbers, but is there a particular sector of the different usages that you see growing more quickly, or that you would anticipate having more growth as far as the usage of the airport that may well, you know, help inform us as far as the enhancements that we do to the airport? So if it's more recreational, if that is growing faster than some of the commercial uses, that might tell us something. Do you have any information on that?
It actually segues into my next portion. If you'll allow me to just move to that portion, perhaps that question will be answered.
You know, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So certainly, I'm glad I was able to be of help. Proceed.
I do appreciate that. So one of the things that we have looked at that many other airports have, most airports, you know, city, county airports, they do operate as an FBO. So we wanted to pull a definition of what is an FBO. So the FAA defines an FBO as any business granted the right to perform airport functions for us, whether that be fueling, hangar rentals, tie downs, tugging, repairs, flight instructions, any other type of aeronautical service. And FBOs have the ability to perform some things that we currently can't perform at our level. They have certifications for airplane mechanics. They can provide services for nitrogen for the tires. They can perform services such as the oxygen of refilling if they have a plane, especially if they're going to be flying to like a high altitude climate. They have oxygen on board, and in order to refill and replenish those canisters or make a repair, you need to have a certification to do that. We, with our staffing and with experiencing some of our turnover, that is not something we're able to offer. And then there's other basic things, just as like upholstery and cleaning of the airplanes, that we also don't offer at this time. Some of the area airports that have FBOs are our downtown airport, the Charles Wheeler, the Johnson County Executive, New Century, Jefferson City, Maryville, and Lee Summit. Lee Summit has their city-operated FBO. These others are contracted FBOs, where they have gone out with an RFP and solicited a service to be able to come in and provide these services for them. which kind of brings me to the thought of where do we need to go with our airport? So we have looked, we have searched, we have tried avenues of professional websites and publications to search for a airport manager. We have had limited success with that. We have spoken with our HR department to consider, well, what if we hire a professional service, a headhunting service that maybe specializes in this type of work to find this individual. I have thrown a couple of numbers up here, but based upon the salary of, at this point, $79,500, the average cost is somewhere between 20 to 25% of that is the fee, and some of those go as high as 40% and can be even higher. So we have not done, we've not hired an outside service yet. And then we have researched FBO services. So we have kind of reached the point, we are extremely pleased that we finally have our staffing back up and we're back up to 7 days a week. We are very excited to be preparing for the NFL draft and making preparations for that. We would like to be able to get our hours extended to do at least 7 to 6. That is on the horizon, but we lost an individual, hired an individual, so now we need to go back and train someone again before we can expand those hours again. So as we've looked at this and struggled with staffing and keeping people trained, this was the appropriate time for us to be able to come and offer this as a discussion and to present and see if there was any direction at this point from the commission as to what your pleasure would be.
Very good. Thank you very much for giving us the basic, the basic lay of the land. And yes, I think you're right. This is a time for us as a commission to have this discussion and to also at that point, hopefully at the end of this discussion, to instruct staff on how they should go forward. So with that, Commissioner Lawson, you are recognized.
Thank you. I think that long ago, if my memory banks are in good working order, didn't we originally build that as like a reliever for KCI and downtown airport when we first instituted that? I think it was.
I can't answer to how it was built, but I can say I believe we have that designation as one of the airports in the area that is designated as a reliever. Yes.
And then to the to this consulting or the group that would manage, I had the opportunity, quite by accident, to talk to a gentleman who ran one of these organizations. Something that I found real enticing was the fact that they can do as much or they can do as little as you please. Did I go off? No, okay. Or as little as you want them to do. So say that, you know, we have a good staff out there. Leave our staff alone. Don't replace anybody. But then we don't have mechanics of our own, so they would bring those. Maybe they bring, you know, somebody that does the base management. And as we go forward, I'd like us to consider that maybe we do that for a short duration. Don't get crazy and get into a long-term contract with them, but do a short duration contract to see how it works. And then if we get going good, we find sufficient people to staff up like we need, mechanics and all, then maybe 2-3 years, we can walk away and be our own entity. But I think that this is such a great option. In a way, it takes the monkey off the staff's back, but it gives us someone with great knowledge and management skills. The other thing, and the last thing, and then I'll shut up. The last thing is the board, the airport board. I think someone like that is an invaluable tool to this commission because they're the people that live it every day. Their planes, they know their planes, they know other airports they fly in and out of. And I think that they are going to be a group that can give us some invaluable information. I know we've got the final choice, but feedback from them is going to be key to helping us to make the right decision. And I would like to ask, I would like to see the commission, you know, we can't be as involved as Diana's going to be, but I think I would like to see us be involved in those decisions, because ultimately, you know, we're going to have that monkey on our back as to whether or not it's good or it's bad. So I'd like to have a little input as we go forward.
By the way, just for informational purposes, Mr. Crosley, who I believe is the chair of the Aviation Board, was scheduled to be here, but unfortunately was unable to join us today. So that is certainly a good point. With that, Commissioner Withington, you are recognized.
Yeah, so I've had a number of conversations with Todd Crosley. You know, I think an FBO is probably a good thing to look into. I would like to see the county put together a RFP or whatever to get some proposals on that. You know, it seems like there's been so many issues up there for so long that, you know, we owe it to the patrons of the airport to provide them with the best service that we can. So I would be in favor of an RFP or, you know, whatever for an FBO. But then also, I spoke to Melissa Cooper. Did you ever reach out to her? She offered to sit on a panel and everything. Have we reached out to her? She's the deputy director for Kansas City Aviation.
Right, and thank you. Since you provided her name, we've not really had a candidate to even interview, but she's on our list.
Okay.
And certainly maybe that's involve her, you know, as we look at our proposals that come in from FBO potentials.
Okay.
So we'd have an interview
Yeah,
panel.
she said she would sit on a panel
Yeah,
for us.
that'd be
so-
great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but no, I'm in favor of looking at an FBO. I think, you know, like I said, we deserve to give those patrons the best possible service, so.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. I won't be a broken record in the sense that I think it's worthwhile to look at the FBOs. I look at it from a certain standpoint of, one, you have to have stability of staffing down there. But two, I'm intrigued by the other services that can be brought in, because I think everyone would agree, you know, an airport is a business concern and you want the business to grow, and the way you grow it, if you, as you have told me, don't build more on the land because you've got other problems. So I've listened, just so you know.
Very, very good. Glad you heard that.
Excellent. But then you have to look at the sorts of services that you can provide. And so, but I am curious to know what that universe of FBOs look like. You showed the list of other airports, and many of whom have FBOs. So when you say there's an RFP that may develop and going out, how many potentials are there, and are we thinking that, you know, there's a universe of 100 of these that we will send to this RFP to, and we'll see who responds, or is that universe more like 2, 3, or 4, or could you even know what that universe looks like?
I can speak to the research that we have done. And of course, we were researching more a Midwestern area.
Sure.
To see what we could attract rather than on one of the coasts.
Yeah.
And I would say we identified somewhere between 6 to 8.
Okay.
I mean, there's 2 different ones alone at the downtown airport.
Right. Right.
So there's a different one in Maryville. There's a different one in Jefferson City.
Right.
There was some names that would popped up that are nationwide, that are in various coast to coast.
Right.
So I can't say that I know how many there are out there, because we kind of limited our search, but
Yeah.
I felt if we had 6 to 8 to choose from that might potentially respond to an RFP, that may give us a good choice to select
Yeah.
from.
Well, and I appreciate you looking kind of, you know, in this area and what's in this area, because it seems to me that if you want that stability of staffing, you can't necessarily send something to the one that runs a bunch of airports in California, and then we want them to come, you know, to Clay County. Because if you have one bad day, you don't have enough staffing. You want that latitude of moving people around if that's necessary. So I appreciate that, and look forward to what you may put forward. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. First of all, Commissioner Lawson and I had the opportunity to go on a tour, thanks to you and John, a couple weeks ago, and what a great little airport. That's a little diamond in the rough as far as I'm concerned. A lot of potential there. I was surprised it's only 5% corporate use there, but nonetheless, a couple of questions I have. One is Lee Summit's FBO. Can you explain how they work?
Do you have any input, John? Okay, so we have talked to their airport manager several different times. In fact, during our interim status, we can't thank them enough for being a source of information and everything for us. It is operated by the city, but they do specific services. And I would have to defer to John to see, because I don't know that they offer mechanical services or not.
Okay.
I know that when I had conversations with him, they're doing the hangar leases, they're doing the hangar services, the pilot's lounge area. So I'll see if he has more information.
To the best of my recollection for Lee Summit, I think the city has their part, and then they have other vendors out there for like mechanical, airplane mechanics, such as just general repairs, and then their avionic repairs, and then detailing and all that.
So is the Lee Summit model something that we're not interested in pursuing?
It could be. I really don't have enough information about them. Honestly, I haven't went out and toured any of the airports and all that to gather
I
a
just
lot of
wondered,
information. So.
Okay, because I know, Don, you mentioned it's different than a typical FBO somehow, but I didn't know what that difference was.
I think for the majority, most of them everybody's a little different, has their own setup, so.
Okay, and actually the last question I have, probably more important questions. I'm curious what staff's opinion of the three possible solutions that you've put up there. What staff thinks is the best. And when I say staff, I don't necessarily care for a unanimous decision on this. If there's different opinions on staff, I'd actually be curious to know what are some of the opinions staff have. When I say staff, Diana, Donna, John, and any others who have a firm opinion on what direction you think the county should go with this airport as far as those three solutions.
Well, we had a meeting a couple months back, and there was guests here that were expressing they want to see other services and all that. If you want to expand those services, then I would say you need to go the FBO route.
FBO?
Because training our county staff to do a lot of that they're requesting is more technical and advanced, and sometimes requires mechanic licenses and all that, and we're not capable of doing that.
Okay, I'm curious if Don or Diana have a different opinion of that than FBO.
So I'll weigh in a little bit. As with any operation, there's pros and cons. I think at this stage, I would recommend going out for a proposal for an FBO. I think depending upon the applications that we get back, the proposals that we get back to some degree, as Commissioner Lawson indicated, we have a lot of flexibility on how we craft that. My understanding with Lee Summit is it is kind of a quasi both. Both the city staff are involved in the operations of the airport, and then they have a fixed base operator that does other functions. So as John mentioned, providing some of the services that we would like to make available to our tenants or visitors to our airport takes a lot of technical training, certification, a lot of investment even in equipment, whereas if that are services that we basically have under contract by an FBO, then there's a benefit to those who visit our airport, but it's not necessarily the county staff that is providing that services. So I think we propose that we write the RFP that it is somewhat flexible. So depending on the companies that respond back to us, we'll be very interested in hearing their proposals and how much they would operate. Are they really taking care of and leasing the hangars, or is that something that the county still maintains and they do other functions? I think at this point, we're very open and very flexible because we want to find the best product. And we want whoever is out there, our staff, an FBO, that they will represent Clay County. And so that's very important to us about customer service and representing the county as best as they can with the right attitude and service. And so we'll want to have that dialogue with whoever we put under contract out there.
Thank you. You have a different opinion than that? I hate to put you on the spot because
No,
I'm your boss.
I do not. It just kind of brought me back around to Commissioner Nolte's question. In order to attract, just my opinion, in order to attract more corporate-type clients, I feel like we really have to expand those services. So if you fly in your corporate jet and your pilot needs to rest, but your aircraft is due for its oil change, this is something that can take place while you're sitting there for 8 hours. We do not have the ability to do that right now. We're currently having issues, and I hate to drag in poor highway here, but to get CDL drivers. So if we're having so much difficulty to put CDL drivers out on our roads, to get aircraft mechanics seems highly unlikely at this point in the game.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to join the discussion? Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. So I will say thank you so much for doing the work on this and looking into all these options. I am on board with going with the FBO option. I just want to ask, we kind of touched into it, is there any negative drawbacks? Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to? Because we've talked a lot about all the great benefits and expanding and providing all these services, and I think it sounds wonderful. I want to make sure there's nothing that's going to create a bigger problem later. And Diana mentioned that we were able to make it a little flexible and put some verbiage in there as well and keep some of our employees. Does this going to affect any employees that currently work out
Well,
there?
we have been doing research and looking, and we have a draft RFP prepared. Typically, those run sometimes between 3 to 5 years, just depends on the area. One of, I guess, the biggest drawbacks that our county administrator alluded to is that, yes, we have a little less control. But we've kind of looked at this as just like our golf course. We have had a long-standing relationship with Eddie Hall that runs our golf course. He, in essence, is an FBO for the golf course. He runs it, he schedules all the tournaments, he takes care of everything, the golfers, he operates the restaurant, concession stand, whatever we want to call it out there, books the tournament room, and we have had a wonderful relationship with the golf course of handling that. County staff is out there taking care of the greens, the watering, all of that type of stuff, and taking care of our bunkers. But the basic operation for the golf course is done, like I said, with someone you just consider as an FBO. It does have less control. Double-edged sword. Could also be another win-win like we have at the golf course.
Right. So, as I said, there can be positives and there can be negatives. And one of the key aspects that would be is, who do we have under contract, and do they represent the county in the best way that they can? And so certainly, we will put the pressure on our county councilor to make sure whatever contract is entered into, that if there are issues and performance issues and not representing the county in the manner in which we would like, that is a contract that can be terminated with proper notice. But that will be the challenge, right? Is making sure that but it's the same thing with hiring, having the right staff. It is key is getting the right people in place.
And Commissioners, can I maybe offer a little bit of perspective on this as well?
Please go ahead.
So we have had FBOs in the past, more than once, at the airport. And at least in my estimation, the short answer to your question is there's no drawback to having a good FBO. And that's the key, is it's got to be a good FBO. And they have expertise that we simply don't have when it comes to aviation. Historically, the problem always is we are just small enough that getting and retaining a good FBO is really hard. Well, we'll probably have difficulty getting good responses to an RFP, which is not to say we shouldn't try. But this is an ongoing issue. This is going back 20 years. Trying to get an FBO, getting an FBO, FBO comes out, realizes it's not the kind of traffic that they want. One of the times we had the FBO basically abandoned us and went to a different airport and said, we'll be on call to come to Clay County. And obviously that didn't work. So that's really the struggle. We want an FBO. We've always wanted an FBO. It is the answer if you can get a good FBO. But at our size airport, it's a struggle, and that'll be the struggle we'll see.
Commissioner Thompson, I do want to go back and answer your question about staff. No, we don't want to lose any of the staff we have. The RFP would be written as that is one of the requirements, is that you absorb the staff. And it doesn't matter what industry you look at these days with needing help, it's hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't appreciate already having a person trained in the office that knows how to use our fueling system and our billing. And we have trained linemen that already know our equipment. That would not be nothing but a plus to attract someone where we already have people in place for them.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to join the discussion? One of the things that struck me as we were having this discussion was the depth of possible services that we could provide that we are unable to provide right now, mechanics, that sort of a thing. So I really think this is an awfully good option for us. With that, what we are wanting to conclude this discussion with is a recommendation from a consensus of the commission. The sense I get of it is that there's consensus on the commission to instruct staff to go forward with the RFP process. And of course, they will be keeping us informed as appropriate through that process. I'm getting head nods. We seem to have head nods from everyone. So, Administrator, do you need any further instruction from the commission to go forward?
No, thank you very much. We will proceed with an RFP process, and we'll keep the commission informed of the status of that process.
Very good. Thank you very much. That moves us to our next discussion item, body car camera program, and that is, I believe, the...
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Captain Agdarian, who is here. We have a presentation for you this afternoon with regard to the body-worn cameras and the in-car cameras for the Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon, Commission. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. Not to brag, but the Sheriff's Office has been a kind of ahead of the curve as far as body-worn camera and mobile camera technology. I know we've fallen behind in some areas, but this is one that we're really proud of. We've had body-worn cameras for a number of years and for a longer time than some of our larger surrounding agencies. So we're pretty proud of that level of transparency that we've been able to provide. Over the last 18 to 24 months, we have realized through the help of the relationship with IT that our server capacity for retaining the vast amount of data generated by body-worn cameras is just not sufficient. And so we've kind of gone back and forth. Do we do some kind of research into a larger server? Do we explore cloud-based server and storage that way? And so the long story short, to respect everyone's time, is that it's taken us to this point, but after about 18 months, we have worked with several different companies to come full circle that Motorola Enterprises, our current provider of WatchGuard body-worn camera and mobile camera technology, is the best choice for us. And so I'm going to bring to you today this information about the body-worn camera project and the mobile camera project. I'll just refer to it as WatchGuard, because the hope is that by giving you information today and generating discussion, that we might be able to bring this to the regular agenda next week for commission approval to proceed with this project and approval of the contract with Motorola. So, as I said, we've looked at all of the different options, and with me today I have Denise Gibb and Madeline Hodson from Motorola, and they have a presentation to give you much more information than I possibly could. I also have Lieutenant Larry Tarrant from our Logistical Support Division here to answer questions that you might have. If I don't, he's my subject matter expert. And as always, we have Sheriff Will Aiken here to discuss anything else that he might want to share about this project. So I'm going to turn this over now to Denise and Madeline if they would like to. See, people are always sneaking up behind me here, you guys. I'm going to turn it over to them, and then I have some information that I'm going to bring around to you as she's getting set up.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today. I'm Denise Gibbs. I'm your local Motorola account manager. I've worked with the Sheriff's Office for the past 5 years.
Could you speak a little bit more in the microphone? I'm a little
Yes,
trouble
I
following.
apologize about that. I'm Denise Gibbs. I'm Clay County's local Motorola account manager. And with me, I have Madeline Hodson, who is our WatchGuard body-worn camera specialist. Today, we're going to give you an overview of the status of your existing in-car cameras and body-worn cameras. We'll talk about some enhanced features that the new solution upgrade would provide to the Sheriff's Office, and then we'll cover the pricing of the proposed solution.
So currently the county right now is using our body-worn cameras, our in-car cameras, and then the software platform. As of last year, the end of last year, we discontinued manufacturing any new body-worn camera units that the county is currently using. We foresee that also happening with the in-car system that the county is using and the software platform that the county is using this year as well. So what that means is, currently for body-worn cameras, we have 49 out of the 134 out of hardware warranty. For an in-car perspective, we have 24 out of the 31 that are out of warranty right now as well. I like to start off with this slide because it breaks Motorola down and really oversimplifies Motorola. The first sleeve is mission critical communication, right? Motorola radios. I believe a few years back, the county actually spent a significant amount of money on Motorola radios. And then the second sleeve is any public safety software, right? Any software that falls under facilitating public safety in some manner. The third sleeve is video security and analytics. This is in-car systems, this is body-worn cameras. The idea, what we're trying to do is really integrate the systems. So a specific example would be the radios that you purchase. Anytime that a trooper or a deputy or an officer presses the emergency button on the radio, it's going to activate the body camera. So we're looking for integrations between systems that you guys have already purchased, moving forward into our technology. This would be the V300 body-worn camera that the county would upgrade to. This is the camera that has integrations with the radio today. A significant upgrade of this camera than what the county is currently using is the battery life. This unit now has a removable battery, allowing a deputy to be out in the field, maybe a more remote location, but always has an additional battery with them, always has power on the body camera. Right? I think in this day and age, not having video but having a body camera program isn't acceptable anymore. From an integration perspective between the in-car and the body-worn camera is actually going to be the microphone for the in-car system. It's nice from the county's perspective because when they log in, they can see all viewpoints of a situation. They can see both of the viewpoints from the front forward camera of the in-car system and the body camera as well. Again, the microphone is going to be the body camera for the in-car system. This is our M500 new and improved in-car. It is similar to what the county is using today, which is nice from a learning curve of the deputies. There's not going to be such a learning curve with upgrading this equipment because from a user experience perspective, they're going to know what buttons to press and things like that. So it really does mitigate human error in terms of upgrading a platform. It's going to improve uploading. So currently some of the fleet can't upload via LTE. They cannot upload data via Wi-Fi. It's more of a manual process. So this will allow the county to be able to offload wirelessly and improve those speeds. A couple of features that get enabled during this upgrade going to potentially the cloud would be something called the Command Central Community Package. So this is community engagement tools, a public-facing crime map, a tipping solution, a camera registration for small business owners. So really interactive tools with the community and with the county. And then it also allows you to enable the Command Central Capture app. This is good for investigation purposes. This is just a secure way to capture pictures, audio files, videos from a department-issued cell phone that attaches to a case along with body camera footage, in-car camera footage that can then be shared on. So a secure way to capture digital evidence besides outside of the body camera or in-car system. I'll skip this slide for now. This just shows the data flowing between the systems. So our video as a service offering or video as a service upgrade is kind of encompasses everything that we need to. So I'll break it down into this slide. But for a monthly fee or an annual fee, it covers all things that the county would need for 5 years. You have your initial hardware, you have hardware warranties for all 5 years, and you have unlimited storage for all 5 years coming from those devices as well. Furthermore, halfway through the 5-year program, at the 3-year mark, we're going to replace all of the body-worn cameras with fresh new units, ultimately keeping the county up to date on all the latest and greatest technology. So we have a built-in hardware refresh, we have built-in hardware warranties, and then we have unlimited cloud storage for the entire 5 years. So from a county's perspective, there isn't going to be any unforeseen costs coming up through these 5 years because it's all covered up front.
And just to review pricing included with the proposal, the contract price, this is on NASPO, the Missouri Participating Addendum, is $1.161 million. We've applied an additional discount of $166,000, valid through May 5th, which brings the grand total for 5 years to the $995,000. That is split into once annual payments throughout the 5-year term. The first being $50,000, and then $348,000 and $199,000 every year, years 3 through 5. So with that, we'd like to entertain any questions that we can answer.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Just a couple questions. You kind of referred to it, but I want to draw it out. So, and the captain or sheriff are welcome to answer this too. So this contract was originally bid through NASPO, and so we are piggybacking on that contract to present what you have here today. And the discounts, are those already pre-negotiated, or is just what is being offered to Clay County to get on board?
The NASPO discounts are pre-negotiated, and then the $166,000 is above and beyond NASPO for Clay County specifically.
Okay, very good. And then I noted on that last slide with the pricing summary, I was just sort of curious, always loved the cheap year one, but I was curious as to why it balloons in year 2 and then goes back down between years 3 through 5. If there was any logic to that.
We worked with the sheriff's office to determine the amounts per year that they wanted in the budget. They just specifically wanted year 1 to be lower. So we lowered year 1 and then moved it into year 2.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. The reason that that first year is low is because this project came up after the discussions about the 5-year CIP had been solidified. And so we realized that this was a really important project that we wanted to work into the CIP if we could. So it says 50,000, but my goal is to be able to hold back enough operating budget funds to put at least 50,000, if not 75, to this project the first year to lower the remaining 4 years. And so the way I understand this, and ladies correct me if I'm wrong, in order to get the benefit of the discounted price, we have to sign by May 5th, correct? Yes, May
Right.
5th. Okay. So by signing into this agreement by May 5th, we lock in the price, but by giving a date of January 1st, 2024 to take delivery of the items and then net 30 after that to actually pay for it, I can encumber at the end of this budget year whatever funds to put towards that 75,000 is my goal, to take care of that first year. Okay? And so then, even though we're year 2, I think, at that point into the 5-year CIP, we have been able to start our 5-year clock on this project at 2024. And I have been in discussion with County Administrator about how we can move forward on this project. And so by the Sheriff's Office taking care of that initial year and not asking for additional funding from Commission to make that happen, that's why the pricing structure looks like it does.
Okay, and I don't mean to negotiate the pricing structure, but is it then the position of Motorola that we really want to even out our 5 years, but Motorola is willing to basically say, just give me a balloon payment in year 2 to even out my first 2 years, and because we don't really want to spread that 348 among 4 years. Is that kind of? I guess I'm trying to see if I can lower my year 2 amount, but you know.
Well, I'm going to work on that from our end and like
Okay,
try
that's fine,
to
that's
lower it as much as I can. But as
Yeah.
far as Motorola's pricing structure, it
Yeah.
would be great if they would do that, but I can't speak to their practices.
No,
so.
I understand. I just notice a great year 1 and then a big year 2, and I'm just trying to even things out even more. So, but I understand and I appreciate the answers to my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. So unfortunately, I think we're in a world now where it's an expectation that officers wear body cameras. First question I have is, how old are the cameras that we have now?
They range. I think they bottom in Stagmans, but I think they range between 7 and 6 years. Yes. Old.
About 6 or 7 years, you say? Okay. And then the technology that's with these new cameras, that you mentioned the battery life, is the technology, is there that much greater for these newer ones?
Yeah, the previous cameras didn't have a removable battery, which caused a challenge because if they were out in the field or in a more remote
Could you speak
location-
more? There
Oh,
you go.
I apologize. The previous unit causes a little bit of hurdles with not having a removable battery, just being out in the field. And if a camera dies, then a deputy is out of having body camera footage. So the removable battery has been added to this unit.
And then 166 body cameras. So is this just for patrol officers?
Okay, so actually, no. Currently, we have a few scattered around in detention, but this quote actually encompasses all of the people that we have in the field, as well as 50 additional cameras for our detention personnel.
Okay. And then officers in the field, are they each issued their own camera, or do they share those cameras?
Each one is issued his or her own camera.
Now, is there a reason why, and I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but is there a reason why they don't share? In other words, you're off shift, you turn your camera in, the next guy coming on shift, where's that camera?
So we have kind of talked about this with other equipment. It's the turnaround time and the overlap. Right now, we are so swamped with shortages of personnel and manpower. It would be very, very logistically difficult to swap cameras back and forth between shifts.
Okay, and then lastly, I think you touched on it, but so this is somewhat incorporated into the jail facility as well then?
Yes.
Any fixed cameras included in this, in the jail facilities? In this?
No, that's a separate system.
Okay, it's completely separate.
Yeah.
And the last question I had was storage. Let's see. I had a question about storage, but I can't remember what it was.
Okay. A lot.
It was a really good question, I tell you.
And Zach is here from IT. He can tell you about the catastrophic failures we've had on a couple of our server a couple of times that we couldn't upload data. We were losing evidence.
So the storage will now be
Possibly.
managed by Motorola?
It will be it will be a Azure government cloud.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how long, what are the laws in Missouri? How long are we required to keep that information? Anybody know?
for evidentiary purposes until the closure of the case. Sometimes it's dictated by our policies. 30 days is typically the standard, and it's kind of like when we were talking about the flock technology. Typically speaking, we keep records. In the past, we have kept them up to 90 days, but again, because of the intense pressure that put on our server, we had to lower it to 30 days, which was the state mandated minimum.
Okay, that's what I was curious about, the state mandated. Okay, thank you.
I did have a question also. Commissioner Johnson brought up the jail, and it seems to me that you've got a pretty distinctly different situation within the jail as opposed in the field, because in the jail, and obviously I'm no expert on the subject, but you've got a limited amount of space. That space is highly observed. You've got a lot of cameras in there. Are you talking about every person who is in the jail having a body camera? Because I'm wondering how required that is, because there are already, I should guess, substantial number of surveillance cameras just for this, common sense there'd be in there. So at what level might these become redundant if we had every corrections officer or every deputy with a camera? So could you kind of expand on that a little?
Absolutely. So while everybody in the field is going to be issued his or her own camera, the detention personnel, they might not take that camera home, like issued to them to take home as part of their equipment, but it will be available. There will be enough cameras to outfit all currently working staff coming into and out of the jail. And again, because it is a little bit more of a controlled environment where you are physically relieving the person who is outgoing on their shift, it's much easier to make sure we have enough cameras for everybody who's going off shift and coming on shift. So they're not going to be issued, if I'm working in detention, Amy is not going to be issued a body camera to Amy. Amy is going to come in, I get my assignment, I take the camera, I put it on, I go to work.
So what you were saying before, I think Commissioner Johnson raised the issue about whether the cameras on field officers would be circulated. You were saying that there was just an impracticality to be able to do that, but it is practical within the jail facility to be able to do that. Am I understanding that?
Yes. And in addition to that, we have some detention staff that are assigned to detention that will work off-duty assignments, and it is critical that they have access to a camera that they can take with them on these off-duty assignments. Additionally, the issue of having a lot of camera coverage inside detention, it's great visually, but it's not going to capture the interpersonal interactions between people in the day room. It's hard to pick up the audio of that.
Okay, yeah, I can see where it would be helpful. It feels a little bit redundant in some ways, but on the other hand, this is not something that I deal with every day, so I'm certainly willing to hear how that would apply otherwise. But it does feel as though that there is an awful lot of surveillance hopefully going on within the jail. It's just a necessary part of doing business.
I would respond to that with you've got the 30,000-foot view of all of the things going on in a day room. It's the subtleties that you miss of nonverbal communications, facial expressions, hand gestures, placement, all of that these cameras, because they are right here, and I am going to catch exactly what I'm looking at. Every facial tick, every movement, every eye twitch, you're going to see that on the camera. And there's no way that our fixed cameras can catch that information.
And I'm assuming that personnel within the detention facility would be turning it on when they would be interacting with a detainee, as opposed to having them on all the time, because once again, we're talking about a lot. I'm thinking in terms of storage capacity, and clearly we don't need to store a lot of innocuous video, so I'm sure you'd thought through that part of it. Okay, but that's the only thing that occurs to me, is because, like I say, the detention facility is by definition highly controlled, but I appreciate you expanding on that.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to join this discussion? Okay. I don't know that you're looking for, this is largely informational, so I don't know that you're looking for any consensus from the commission, but this is more informational so that when this subject comes before us, we've got a little background.
Absolutely. And so I would ask that you take this opportunity to ask any questions of our Motorola representatives specifically about the technology. And I feel confident answering questions about the contract and the terms and the numbers, if you will. But if you have specific questions about the kind of cameras we're using and how they interact with and interface with our current equipment, now is the time. I would love for you to take advantage of their knowledge so that next week when I come back with a regular agenda item, it will be a much shorter presentation.
Commissioner Wagner, I think you had something you wanted to add to the conversation?
Well, since I've been told to ask the question now.
Oh, I don't think you're on.
Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe they don't want me to. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Just maintenance on the equipment itself as it gets damaged over time, the process.
So the in-car systems the in-car systems can last for 8 years easy. We sell 8-year hardware warranties. In this particular contract or this particular upgrade, you would have 5 years of a hardware warranty. So if any components were broken, we would send you out new components of that for the in-car system. For the body-worn camera, the same thing. At any point in time in the 5 years, if anything happens to a camera, we send you out ones, no questions asked. And then halfway through, we replace all of those units.
So essentially in 5 years, the camera that you get in year one will last for about 2.5 years and then be replaced automatically.
Yes, correct. And it'll last further than that, but we just replace it, and we're proactive about replacing it at the 3-year mark.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions of the panel? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here today and the information.
Thank you.
That brings us to our next discussion item, which is the sale of parcel of Clay County land, trustee, planning and zoning.
Director Jones is here to provide to the commission just a little brief overview of the role of the county land trustee, in which Director Jones serves in that position, and also bring forward some information for the commission with a potential sale of a parcel that we have received a request for.
Please proceed.
Kip Jones, Planning Director. So as the county administrator said, just want to give you a brief summary of what the land trustee does and then talk about a specific parcel. So the land trustee is appointed by the county commission. That position is authorized to bid on the properties at the annual tax sale. That's the fourth Monday in August every year. The goal is to prevent loss to the taxing authorities in case of inadequate bids by other bidders. I coordinate with the collector's office. The collector and her personnel are always good to work with. And then really, I think the biggest thing that this position does is we help facilitate the sale of post-third sale properties. So the way that tax sale works, it's by number of years that property's been on the sale. So once they get on the tax sale for the third time and they don't sell, then they become available year-round. So that's kind of where we jump in, and we've started sending, and typically these properties that don't sell on the third sale are little remnant tracts of parcels that are just strips of land here and there. And so we've started sending letters to adjacent property owners that abut those pieces to try to get those back on the tax roll. So that's been, I think, one of the biggest things that we do. So this one parcel in particular, so currently the land trustee owns one parcel. It was purchased in 2002. It's highlighted in the yellow on the screen. It's approximately 0.26 acres. It's located in Missouri City. It's heavily wooded. The taxes due at the time of the purchase were $234.86. That was for 3 years. I was contacted by a gentleman that wants to purchase the property. We agreed on the sale price of $234.86. Included in the packet today was a quitclaim deed that would deed the property over to the new individual. The gentleman has agreed to pay the recording fees to record that deed if approved by the commission. As with the previous case, our thought here was to give you some information, and then if you wanted to move forward, bring this back on the regular agenda next week. So that's kind of really quick summary, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners have.
So essentially, this would make the county whole, or at least the taxing entities who receive those taxes whole.
It would. Now, obviously, there were the period from 2002 when it was purchased to now where no taxes have been collected, but it would get it back on the roll.
Gotcha. Commissioner Withington.
How many properties like this do we have currently?
This is the last one.
This is the last one?
So when I took over in 2014, I had 3, able to get rid of the 2 previously, and this is the last one we have. I typically try not, my philosophy working with the county councilor is try not to purchase them, kind of go the letter route where we get other people to purchase them. So this is the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be in favor of him bringing it back for a commission vote next week.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. So the quick claim deed will remove any of the title issues, so this will be a clean transfer to the new person.
That's my understanding. I had county council, the assistant county councilor review this.
Okay.
And he okayed that quick claim deed.
Okay, very good. And then, not that I need to know the specific buyer, but just curious to know the nature of the buyer. Is it someone who owns another parcel around there, or what is the ultimate purpose, I guess, of the?
So it is not an adjacent property owner. It is someone that wants to work with Missouri City to see how he can use that property. I think his goal would be to try to fit a house on there.
Okay.
Now, whether that's achievable or not, I don't know.
Do we have an interest in its ultimate disposition?
My department does not, because I do not have jurisdiction over this land. It is controlled, or the city of Missouri City has jurisdiction.
I see. But because it has come through, it is residing in the land trust, that is why we are engaged in this. So, okay.
Correct. And my preference would be to sell it so the county doesn't have any liability if there's issues with trees falling down, maintenance issues in the future.
And you'll forgive me because I go back to my history with the creation of the land bank in Kansas City, where final dispositions were very important in that case. And so I guess if we are ready to let it go, and I can understand you would like to finish the race of getting rid of all these properties, I get it. Is it really our contention then that we're going to sell it to that property owner for that price, put it back on the tax rolls in Missouri City, that final disposition of that property is really your deal, and that's kind of how we approach it?
Yes, he will have to work with the city as to how he can use that property.
And there is no, if he fails to figure out what to do with it with Missouri City, that's his problem at that point. There is no recourse for him to bring it back to us.
I would rely on county council for that one.
I'm just actually structurally.
Correct. I mean, essentially, if they couldn't work something out and chose not to pay the new taxes, we might start the process all over again.
And then maybe we'll get it again and go through it all over. But
I'm not buying it again.
You and me both. Well, although I will say I tend to like a little more certainty to dispositions of property that has come by us. I also feel like if someone's willing to deal with this, and Missouri City knows that they're going to deal with this, and it's the last one, then that's not a sword I intend to fall on. It's just, that's a little different than what I'm used to doing. But otherwise, I'll agree with my colleague. Bring it on next week.
Just to follow up, that would be as far as the dog we would have in the fight, as far as the use of that land, the disposition of it. That would be a different story if it were in unincorporated Clay County. Then it would be a little bit different texture.
Correct. Then I could tell you what that property could be used for and what could be built on it.
So it's really, the issue is between the municipal and county governmental jurisdictions that the land falls in.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be in total agreement to do this, but I just want to say one thing. I want to compliment Kip on the way he handles all of this that he has to deal with, plus the fact that after attending the planning and zoning the other evening, he runs a tight ship. He is so good at his job, and I think we want to tell him thank you, and I think we also, I've talked to Diana, he really does do a good job. This is such a touchy thing, all of the many instances that he deals with, and he handles it very professionally, and people are usually happy when it's all said and done, you know, as happy as he can make some people. So I appreciate you and I thank you for all you do.
So my understanding is there is no real consensus. This is once again informational. We will be looking at this possibly likely at the next meeting. And at that point, since this is the last property, I guess we will be ending your dreams of being a land baron in Clay County.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much. That brings us, unless there's further comment, that brings us to our last discussion item. Infrastructure Committee, Commissioner Withington, Administrator, if you'd like to go ahead and cue that up.
This is a request by Commissioner Withington to have the commission talk about a potential infrastructure committee.
Commissioner, if you'd like to go ahead and push your button, I will recognize you. You're ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. So on the campaign trail, I know Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Lawson, and I, we all campaigned on improving our county infrastructure. Citizens in rural unincorporated Clay County, they have been complaining for years about their roads and bridges. We've had instances where bridges have been closed down for up to a decade at a time. So what I would like to see the commission do is establish an infrastructure committee made up of 3 commissioners, probably 2 from the west, or 2 from the east, 1 from the western side. But an infrastructure committee that will work with staff to come up with a true 10-year plan to maintain and improve our infrastructure. I've driven a lot of the roads and they're crumbling, they got potholes. It's embarrassing, it's bad. Taxpayers pay their taxes and they expect basic services. If there's 2 things the government should do, it's public service or public safety and it's infrastructure. If we can't do those 2 things, then we don't have any business doing anything else. So I think we're doing a good job with public safety. I'd like to see us do better on infrastructure. And so I would like to propose creating an infrastructure committee to start developing a 10-year plan, come up with estimates, so that way we can make sure that each year the budget has those as priorities, and then make sure that we have funding in place so that way bridges aren't closed for 10 years at a time.
Very well. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, I was one that campaigned on infrastructure too, as I recall. One of the things that I pointed out, though, was one of the biggest issues with our infrastructure is related to our road and bridge tax. And so I would point out that it's not just what are the conditions of rural roads and how do you attempt to fix them. There's a whole financial piece behind it that has to be looked at seriously. And frankly, we're kind of getting ahead of what we were going to talk about in the retreat, so I'll give you retreat light in the sense that I do believe there is a countywide discussion that has to happen on infrastructure. I do believe that is going to have to include our road districts and our communities. And as one who represents an area that has no part of unincorporated Clay County in it, there are those in those cities who are asking how can the county participate more with our infrastructure. So I don't dismiss the desire and need to talk about it. What I do suggest, it's a lot more than just that. And I would say that as you talk about the financing, maintenance schedules, how do you expand capacities, how do you go from the rural parts of the county, gravel to chip seal, and then project that over 10 years, that requires a lot of expertise in addition to policymakers who want to figure out how to direct that. And so I guess I'll end retreat light by saying I would really like a very robust discussion of what the structure of that looks like that not only solves that issue, but the others that are just hanging out there waiting to be dealt with. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Commissioner Withington, by the way, since you had brought this subject up, I'm going to leave your microphone open so you won't have to come back each time. But certainly I'm going to be recognizing other commissioners so we can keep the discussion going. I just want to tack on before we go back to you that is something that I think is something that there's a really appropriate, we all campaign on infrastructure. I know I did both times, all 3 times I ran. It's always been an issue, and it is going to be a continuing challenge because roads have a way of deteriorating with the passage of time. But 2 things occur to me. One is, I think Commissioner Wagner makes a good point, and that is, I think we need to be talking about what our solution, what our approach is going to be, and I think that's a highly appropriate subject for the retreat. The other is, there has been some talk, whether it is a good, bad, or indifferent idea about forming various subcommittees of the commission to work to tackle items such as infrastructure, which is highly important. I think that that's also an appropriate thing for us to discuss during that retreat. And I think also by looking at it in a bit bigger picture, we can give maybe a sharper mission to that. You know, assuming we put together that committee or workforce or whatever, or work task force, whatever we refer to it as. But I think this is a good subject to raise, but I think it's one that we can drill down on a lot more deeply in our planning session in May. But no, it is a great issue to address, one that is of a lot of interest. Something that Commissioner Wagner brings up is how do we interact with our incorporated partners? You know, clearly that's an issue, and while the primary responsibility of those unincorporated or incorporated areas is that of their municipalities, you've mentioned before about sidewalks and participating with those, so I think we also ought to be included in that conversation if we decide that that is something that we want to reach out to our partners at the municipalities. That's going to take a little bit of upfront work as far as how we do. It's a good subject. I think it's going to take a bit more conversation, but the conversation has to start sometime, so might as well start it now. Please proceed.
Yeah, so I agree with what you both just said. I think the municipalities, we should have conversations. I know when you were city councilman, I kind of made you mad a little bit when I wouldn't leave you alone about sidewalks. The reason I say I wanted to focus on ours is because we have direct on the unincorporated roads. None of the cities do. And if we keep kicking the can down the road, it's going to be another year, nothing's going to get done. Another 2 years, nothing's going to get done. Our citizens that live out in unincorporated Clay County are tired of nothing getting done when we have jurisdiction over their roads. So that's why I said that. But no, I think working with the cities is definitely something. You know, the first annexed neighborhoods in Southwest Clay County, they got ditches, no storm sewers, no sidewalks. Kids are bused as close as 1 block to school because the neighborhood's been deemed unsafe for walking. So that's a bigger conversation. You know, Platte County's got that road tax where they've been very successful at being able to build sidewalks, trails, new roads that would never have been done in every single one of their municipalities without that sales tax. But that's a bigger conversation, but I think we need to have it. But I also think we need to start focusing on what we also have control over, and that's the rural roads that our citizens have been complaining about for years.
Commissioner Johnson.
I think there is some merit to what Commissioner Withington is bringing up. I'm one of those citizens that lives in unincorporated Clay County, and I see this as, first of all, I do think it's be a good time for discussion at our what do we call that, the retreat coming up or whatever, but I think some discussion needs to be had on it. I don't look at it as an oversight or anything on our highway department. I think they do a great job, but as Commissioner Wagner said, it comes to the purse strings. It's about money is really what it's about. And everybody's all about infrastructure and roads and bridges. You know, we all ran on it. The citizens complain about it, but it comes down to money. And we are the ones that hold those purse strings. So I think it's wise if we have someone who holds those purse strings, or a few of us that are on this commission that are a little bit more closely engaged and involved with that. So more as an ally, maybe, to the folks that are getting the job done, so that we can actually see firsthand, hey, this is the issue we're facing, this is the extent of the problem, and this is why we can't get it done, because these are the expenses, and maybe there's something we can we can help solve with having a couple commissioners a little bit more involved in that. Just my 2 cents, but I think we need to discuss even further at our retreat.
Commissioner Lawson.
Okay, thank you. No, I agree with, he kind of took all my points, but that's okay. One of the things that I always remember is, yes, I know that the in-town folks, as we call them, they don't see what we see out in the rural areas. We chose to live out in the rural, so that's one thing. But we also want to remember that with our parks and all that, those people from the city come out to the country to go to the park and go to the lake and go to the golf course, and they're driving over pretty damaged roads sometimes. So it's a win-win when we can get those roads fixed in the long run. I think it is something we need to address heavily, and we do need to partner with the cities because they pay their taxes just like those of us out in the country do. So I think it's imperative that we work with them and give them some benefit of whatever we decide to do. But I do think that we need a strong committee that's willing to look at it, take action about it, work with our road and bridge people so that we can make it a better county. So I'm all in favor of doing something like that and something that we can address in our discussion group.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. And I hope you don't mind because I dealt with a lot of infrastructure back in the day. My only advice, I guess, to however one wants to proceed is there is a difference between maintenance and pure maintenance and safety and capacity building. That is two different strategies. And the difference would be, for example, if you had a bunch of potholes that showed up, you're going to go maintain the road and clear up the potholes. If, on the other hand, you are finding, maybe because we have a growing population in a section of rural Clay County, well, now that's a safety and that's a capacity builder because you're really talking about the level of traffic that you're getting to. That can be divined in various different ways, and that's where I would look at Carl and his team to answer, well, what is a maintenance issue and what is a safety and capacity issue? So I do feel at least compelled to say, you know, again, we talk about infrastructure very generally, but how you approach it and what you're trying to solve can be very, very different. And if it is a matter of, hey, we need to fix some potholes, well, there's a certain cost associated with it. On the other hand, and you know, using the 10-year plan, a 10-year plan as an example, if we are forecasting that the county road with Ray County is going to have so many people, it must have safety and other sorts of improvements. Well, that is a much bigger ask that then lines out a whole series of things to get to whatever that amount needs to be. I use the example as I left City Council in Kansas City. 2 days before I left, we put the groundbreaking on a $16 million improvement for North Woodland, which is now Maple Woods Parkway. That took essentially 4 to 5 years to find all the funds to do that. So I just throw all that out just to say that as this goes on, I would certainly advise kind of being very clear as to what we're talking about. Are we talking about maintenance, or are we talking about safety and capacity improvements? Because those diverge very, very greatly. And I'll just leave it at that. I appreciate your indulgence.
One of the things that, and I think Commissioner Wagner, you were pretty heavily involved with, was the Buck O'Neill Bridge. That involved a variety of the county included, as well as municipalities coming together. In that particular instance, one of the aspects was we agreed to forego other funding requests in the interest of doing that. Now, this is not the same thing, but it is, I think, pertinent to the degree that shows the cooperation that is possible. So there might be, especially if you're talking about a municipality and there's a county road that's going in and there's a mutual benefit that we could coordinate on, Also, I think that we're at the beginning of the process, and not just ourselves, but also by using the help of the EDC, we're starting to get more of a coordinated request from organizations like MARC, so that we are partnering with our friends in Platte County to try to get more funding up here. The idea is if we can get more funding in total, that then might well release more funding for some of the other strictly county type roads. So it's the sort of a thing where I think we need to be looking at this in a very strategic manner, because one of the great things about Clay County is that we are growing. There's just no doubt about it. With that growth, it's going to require, it puts more stress on our infrastructure, not just keeping up the maintenance of it, but it also is going to require some expansion of it as we grow. So I think there's some, I think we do need to have some kind of a committee like that, but I think we need to make sure that that we can come up with their mission in a way that is as all-inclusive as possible. And that's why I think this discussion is extremely helpful, and it's also, I think, something that will no doubt have some extensive conversations about at our retreat in May. But I appreciate you bringing up the issue. It's one that I think we've all kind of been kicking around a little bit. With that, I don't see anyone else wishing to be recognized. If you'd like to kind of round off the discussion. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Carpenter.
Sorry, I appreciate letting me fit in. First of all, I think the idea of doing some kind of, especially on the forecasting and planning for the future, I think makes a lot of sense. These are major investments, and they're the kinds of things that different types of infrastructure have different lifetime or projections, and so I think doing that kind of forward-looking planning makes a lot of sense. Do want to give a shout out though to Commissioner Johnson's remarks about the purse strings and the money available. I think that is ultimately the biggest factor in what we're talking about here, which is the more money we put toward this, the more we're going to get in terms of infrastructure, whether it's maintenance or expansion. And so I would just encourage us, because I think we all agree that finding some additional dollars to put toward that objective makes a lot of sense. The thing that decides how much money we have to put toward it, obviously, is how much we spend in other areas and how much revenue we take in on the tax side. So to the extent that we're going to be successful in the coming years to actually make significant improvements, that is going to very largely be determined by policy decisions we make in other areas, which is how much we spend money on other things that aren't infrastructure, which is going to reduce the amount of money we have for infrastructure, and then also on the tax side, how much we do or do not sort of protect the tax base and the amount of revenue coming in. So agree it's a super important discussion, and just would encourage everybody when we have those other discussions to keep in mind that it's going to have a big impact on how successful we are on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else before I recognize Commissioner Withington to round off the discussion? Very well. Commissioner, you're recognized.
I think we're going to discuss it more, so let's talk about it then.
Thank you very much. That concludes our discussion part of our agenda. That brings us to County Administrator comments. Administrator?
Thank you, Commissioners. Actually, I just have a couple of items. The first one, I'd like to back up a little bit on one of the items that was on the agenda that was approved by you, thank you very much, which was the 3-year agreement for the county data backup and disaster recovery. And Zach is here filling in for Director Shaw, who is unable to attend. They wrote some great information in your RCA, but I want to give a shout out to the IT department because the proposed solution that they came up with not only enhanced 2 appliances, but got rid, and I'm not a tech person, and got rid of an appliance. So the net gain really for the county is improve the availability of our backup system and our disaster recovery and save the county $20,000 on an annual basis. So great job by our IT department in looking at that particular item. The second item, you had some discussion, and you will see it next week, with regard to the camera program by the Sheriff's Department. I would like to add for the Commission that there is funding in the 5-year CIP every year because we had early discussions with the Sheriff's Department about this particular project coming forward and knew that it had a substantial price tag associated with it. So there is annual allocation in the 5-year CIP under the general use tax funds for this particular project. And then just simply the third item is the next meeting of the commission will be next Wednesday, April the 12th, at 6 o'clock here in the chambers. And thank you for your patience with the technology as we continue to bring it online.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate the upgrade. Now, if we could upgrade me, that would be great. So, Commissioner comments, Commissioner Carpenter.
Oh, no comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Just real briefly, for those who are watching the clock, I know we had a lot of discussion items today, but if you take those discussion items off, if you didn't know, our regular agenda was completed in less than 15 minutes today. So that's good. I'm contributing that to the prayer that we had today as well. So maybe the longer the prayer, the shorter our meeting. So nonetheless, 15 minutes, that's good. That's efficient government.
Well, the record is 11 minutes, so we'll see what we can do. Commissioner Withington. Commissioner Lawson? Oh, I'm sorry.
You blocked
There we
me.
are.
The only thing I did want to say was that I was really pleased that we were finally able to say a prayer. Heaven knows we need help. So it was a wonderful thing. I really appreciated it. Thanks.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I'll just take a point of personal privilege and publicly congratulate my wife for her successful election on the North Kansas City School District Board yesterday. I can't tell you how much she is looking forward to it, and I am very happy for her and grateful to those who supported her. Thank you.
Two things. One is I would like to allude also to yesterday's election. Unfortunately, it's never the turnout that we hope, but I do want to express my gratitude at least, and I think the commission also feels this way, and that is we appreciate those individuals who stepped forward, put their names out there, and stood out there for the public to render judgment on whether or not they would be in various offices. Certainly, congratulations to those that were able to prevail, but also our gratitude towards all of them, even those who did not prevail, because it's an exercise that is worth doing, and certainly it takes a good bit of guts for folks to stand up and do that. So certainly we appreciate that. The second thing, and it's a little bit repetitious, we did do our moment of silence for former Commissioner Shull. I just want to again extend the condolences of the commission to the Shull family. They have clearly not been strangers to Clay County. They've performed a lot of service throughout their years. Obviously, our condolences to Noel Shull, who has also had distinguished service to this community, not the least of which was a term, 4 terms as a state representative, and he served in other capacities also. So certainly our thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends of Peggy Shull, and again, our gratitude for someone who did great service for this county and is now at peace. With that, that brings us to recess and adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.